Virginia gets the win in week one, a 48-7 blowout of Coastal Carolina. Chris Graham, Augusta Free Press. So I think this is going to be the schedule for us going forward for the year. Give me the weekend to make sense of the game, and then on Mondays we'll come back and we'll kind of go through all the reporting and what we know, and then at least set the table for the following week. So, Saturday night, 48-7 win. Virginia was a 13.5 point favorite, and the over-under for the game, 57.5. I like to do something on the website where I use the over-under, I use the line, and try to guess what Vegas is kind of thinking the final score might be, somewhere thereabouts. That would have put this game as a 35-23 Virginia win, somewhere in that range. Uh, and it wasn't that. Virginia, slow start, first three drives, a missed field goal, a failed fourth down conversion, and then a just a four and out, a quick first down, and then a three and out after that. But then things got going. It was 28-0 by halftime. Virginia took a 35-0 lead early in the third quarter, and it just never got close. The second half was largely just a scrimmage game. It felt like with at least the Virginia side using a lot of subs, guys not on the two deep, getting guys lots of reps, and also getting the starters rest so they can save those bullets for later on in the season. Kind of just a quick recap as we're starting here on the show. The scare, it's obvious, and you might be tuning into this on Monday as I'm recording it, thinking Chris Graham's going to have news on Chandler Morris, the starting quarterback who got hurt early in the third quarter. Virginia up 28-0. Morris scrambled 28 yards to the 2 yard line. Looked like he had a beeline for the end zone, got hit at the two. It was a helmet to helmet hit, and when he first went down, it looked like to us in the stadium, and maybe to you those of you who watched on TV, that if you saw the replay, that was probably what it was. Helmet to helmet hit, something that could lead to a concussion. Turns out it was a left shoulder injury. We do not have an update on the shoulder injury. Virginia Athletics has not made any statements on that. I was not expecting that they would today. We will probably, well, we'll hear tomorrow from Coach Tony Elliott. He does a press conference at 11:30 every Tuesday. And so that's when we'll get the news. Sometime, between 11:30 and 12 o'clock on Tuesday, we'll try to have the news as soon as we can thereafter for folks to be able to digest. But after the game, Elliott seemed to think that Morris should be fine, and that's important. He had a really good game in his first two quarters plus a drive as a starting quarterback for Virginia. The transfer from North Texas most recently. Also, he was at TCU in Oklahoma. 19 of 27, 264 yards, two TDs. He also had 50 yards on the ground, 41 of those on scrambles. Cam Ross was the game MVP in my book, though, and we'll talk more in depth about him a little later in this. Ross, the most recently a JMU product, he played 4 years at UConn, University of Connecticut, though a couple of those years cut short medical red shirts by injuries. And then one year he was at UConn. The UConn sat out the 2020 season, so he's been in college for a while. Young man's going to have a lot of degrees by the time it's over with, and he's the kind of guy that skill set wise, I'm surprised he's not already in the NFL. His speed and his elusiveness, you can see why he's a punt and kick returner. 124 yards, seven catches, nine targets. He had a TD, also a 100-yard kick return, his second career kick return for a touchdown. So Ross was the game MVP internally. Defense was stellar when the ones and twos on the two deep were in the game. 86 yards of offense for Coastal Carolina, one interception. Chanticleers didn't really move the ball until John Rosinski started playing some of the depth, some of the young guys who aren't on the two deep. And even then, Coastal still ended up with just 254 yards. So even the backups did a great job defensively. So, and also they were just 1 of 14 on third downs. So what do we know about this UVA football team after the 48-7 win? Again, I went to great pains to point out 13.5 point favorites. The final score was supposed to be somewhere in the thereabouts of 35-23, and it was a 48-7 win for Virginia. So what do we know? I was hoping to get a feel. I'm not so sure. I mean, it's one game, and that's the hard part. You want to think, is this the Coastal Carolina that Virginia signed up to play back in the like 2020, 2021 season, whenever it was announced that there was supposed to be a three-game series. Virginia was going to get two games in Charlottesville, one game then down in the Myrtle Beach area. The 2022 game got canceled, obvious reasons, the tragic shootings on November 13th. So it ended up being converted to a two-game, just a home and home series. That Coastal Carolina we signed up to play was in the midst of a run of 11, what, 11 and 2, 11 and 1, and 9 and 3, I think it was the 2022 season, yeah, when Jamie Chadwell was the coach. Since Tim Beck, the NC State former offensive coordinator, took over as the head coach, been a diminishing returns kind of thing. 8-5 in Beck's first season, 6-7 last year, and then now this blowout loss. So don't know. I don't want to. I liked what I saw of the UVA team, but beating this Coastal team may not be as impressive as we think and thought. The Coastal Carolina brand name is not what it was, right? So this Virginia team, though, okay, what we saw Saturday night, this team going into the start of the season and back in the preseason, what, 6 weeks ago at the ACC kickoff, the ACC media voted this team to finish near the bottom of the ACC standings, 14th in the 17-team league. This team is not going to finish 14th in the ACC. That much is obvious. There's too much talent on this team. Defensively, if nothing else. I mean, I like what I see on all sides of the ball, the offense, defense, and special teams, but defensively, defense travels. I'll use a Tony Bennett maxim, right, from all his years. Your offense may have issues, but your defense travels. Defense, I mean, it's a deep defense. It's a fast defense. They're big guys. I mean, it feels like this is the best defense. I was telling a friend on the phone yesterday. This feels like some of those defenses that George Welsh trotted out there in the 90s. This is pretty good defense. And then, look at the offense. I mean, we talked about Chandler Morris, big game, 19 of 27, 264, two touchdowns, 50 yards on the ground. Then Cam Ross, I mentioned it's not just the numbers, seven catches, nine targets, 124 yards, touchdown, 100-yard kick return. It's what he brings. He reminds me, and I'll talk more about this again, and we'll talk more in depth about Ross in a second, but he reminds me of Malik Washington from a couple of years ago. A guy who's 5'10", 5'11", but who was very fast and could play the slot, which means if you're going to be that size and play the slot on the inside of the offense, you've got to be you got to be tough. You're not on the you're not on the edges, basically running fly routes. You gotta be able to withstand some hits from linebackers and safeties. This Ross guy, man, he is good. Jamari Taylor, the Walton Payton finalist from last year at the FCS level from North Carolina Central, had a couple of touchdowns in this game. I like Jamal Edrine, the Purdue transfer most recently from Purdue, a replacement for Malachi Fields. We lost our big 6'4", 220-pound receiver. We got a 6'3", 220-pound receiver out of Jamal Edrine. Had a touchdown catch in the game. So with Ross and Edrine, and then also Trell Harris, who had an amazing catch in this game. We had a couple of pictures that we ran on the site from Mike Ingalls, our photographer, and it's the two snaps right before he actually pulls the ball in. I'm talking about Harris here at the 2 yard line, I think it was a long pass from Morris in the second quarter, and I mean it's amazing he caught that ball, but he's a 6 foot tall, 200-pound speed guy. Lines up at wide out. Then you've got Ross, 5'10", 5'11", 185, lining up in a slot. Then you've got the big receiver Edrine, 6'3", 220 to go on the other end. You got a good tight end in Dakota Twitty, 6'5", 245. Skill set of a guy that he was recruited. He was a four-star recruit as a wide receiver coming out of high school. Then he grew into tight end size. That's a good set of receivers there for this team. The offensive line I mean, literally they played 15 guys on Saturday night, and nine guys who got significant snaps, and that's going to be your rotation. That was the biggest problem for the Tony Elliott era to this point has been depth in general, but particularly on the offensive line. The offensive line has depth. The defense, again, MJ Morris, the quarterback at Coastal Carolina, he'd started 4 games at NC State, had some pretty good numbers there, then decided he was too good to be at NC State, transferred out, went to Maryland, didn't get the job there. Now he's at Coastal. Started 5 of 17 in this game, finished 20 of 36 against the backups. So he's 15 of 19 for 114 against the backups. When the first team defense was in the game, he couldn't get anything going. They didn't sack him until late in the game, but he was rushing throws. He was missing targets because he could hear and feel the footsteps. And so, great job by the defense. I mean, there's dudes on that defense that are there's the corners are 6'4" and 6'3". They've got 11 guys on the defensive line, two deep, for those four slots. A bunch of grad seniors and seniors, and the rest of the guys are juniors. Guys who are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", big fellas. And you don't have to play 50 or 60 snaps a game. They can rotate in and out, be fresh. So it's $30 million roster. It's kind of what you'd expect from that. Let's talk some Cam Ross more in depth. He's the guy that I declared the MVP after the game, after the opener, and I've been talking a lot about him already. Uh, the play that got things going for this team, I mentioned earlier that the offense sputtered its first three times through, missed field goal. The field position was set up by a pass and then a roughing the passer that got Virginia into field goal range. Will Betchridge was well short on a 51-yard attempt, unfortunately. Then the second time through, got to midfield, had a 4th and 2, ended up trying to pass and pass was short. Third time through, just a quick, they got a first down and then fourth down, 4 plays and out. And so fourth possession then, after a great change of possession, great complimentary football, and one of those booming punts that set things up for Virginia. On the change of possession, Virginia gained about 20 yards. Daniel Sparks getting things moving in the right direction for Virginia there. Set up near midfield, but there was a third down again, and you're starting to think, I mean, here we go, another missed opportunity on the horizon. Morris rolled out to his right, found Cam Ross at the 33 of Coastal Carolina. Ross made one move, and he got just to the doorstep of the end zone, got down to the 1 yard line. Virginia scored on the next play, one of the two touchdown runs for Jamari Taylor, and it was off to the races from that point. 25 pass snaps. He had 9 targets, 7 catches for those 124 yards. Also scored on special teams with that 100-yard kick return. And I mentioned earlier, reminds me of Malik Washington, a smaller guy who's tough, it's what happens with, so if you've got Trell Harris on one end, you've got Jamal Edron on the other, you got a speed guy, you got a big guy, and then you got Ross lining up in a slot. So what do you do? Do you bring an extra corner out to play him one on one? You can't. You have to because you can't really put a safety on him. You can't put a linebacker on him. And do you think about putting two guys on him? If you put two guys on him, then what do you do with the two guys on the edge, Harris and Edron? What happens if you are also using Dakota Twitty at tight end, the pass catching tight end, as opposed to Sage Ennis, who's more of the blocking tight end? And does all this open up the running game? So having a guy like Ross changes the calculus for a defensive coordinator in so many ways. And Virginia last year had for 3 games a nice twosome in Malachi Fields and Trell Harris. Then Harris got hurt, didn't play anymore. Maybe late in the season got a few snaps, but this year it's 3 guys. You got 2 speed guys. You've got the still big guy in the form of Jamal Edron. It makes all these guys so much better. And so I've mentioned he reminds me of Malik Washington. Tony Elliott said the same thing after the game. Here's a quote. He reminds me a lot of Malik, and I've said that before. He stressed that Ross, quote, has a long way to go because Malik did some exceptional things here, but he's kind of cut from the same cloth. And there's no doubt about that. Ross has been playing for a while. I mentioned, the 2 injury medical redshirt seasons, COVID completely taking out UConn's 2020 season. His college career, Cam Ross, started in 2019. He's been around for a while. And that first year as a true freshman, he had, we got the number here, 60 catches as a true freshman, way back in 2019. So then UConn didn't play football in 2020. 2020 and 2021 and 2022 were cut short by injury for him. So finally in 2023, he's already got his degree. He got his degree in 2022 from UConn in finance. 2023, he's finally, after that great freshman season, back on the field, 44 catches for the Huskies. Then he transferred to JMU. He still had a couple of years of eligibility. With all that stuff going on, he had 36 catches. He scored on a kick return. I mentioned that. This is his seventh year in college, sixth year in college football with the injuries. Um, he's got his bachelor's in finance. I mean, I can't imagine what else he's doing at this stage. How much, he could have a master's, doctorate, law degree, whatever, maybe a doctor by this point, a medical doctor if he wanted to be. And what's so weird about him, again, I said this earlier, it feels like to me he's got NFL talent. And he's in his mid 20s. The NFL doesn't often draft guys who are, you know, that old. I mean, it's not old in the real world sense, but he's got NFL talent. That's all I'll say. Jamari Taylor, I mentioned, who had the two touchdowns rushing. After the game, said, "We've been seeing Cam Ross chill all camps." What he said after the game, he said, "This is basically normal for him." What we saw. um, Elliott said the different dimension was obvious early on. Elliott said a couple of days into practice, you saw that one, he's a football player. He's got really, really good football instincts. He's got a great skill set as a receiver, and you felt like based on what you saw on film from his days at JMU last year, his quickness, and then he would be able to make some plays. So they've been waiting. The coaching staff's been waiting to unleash this version of Cam Ross on opponents for months. Ross talked about how, I mean, he talked about his journey, and he said, I don't, he mentioned something that he said Coach Elliott says a lot about to play football, you have to have a narrative. You have to, why am I playing? Because you have to be a little crazy, he said. Coach Elliott said, to play football. And you do. I mean, you're getting hurt. I mean, any of these plays, the lightest tackle that any of these guys take would send us to at least the emergency room, if not straight to surgery. Um, so he said the narrative in his head is that he's always been overlooked. He said, I love having that chip on my shoulder. That's what Ross said. He said he's never had malice in his heart, but to him it was just about earning his stripes. And I mean, it's got to be frustrating. 1 year lost completely to COVID. Didn't lose the year of eligibility, but just, I mean, the year of your life. And then 2 years with medical red shirts after injuries. I mean, it's got to be frustrating to be as talented as he is and just not be able to show it. So he said, you got to earn your role. It was for him coming to Virginia, everything was focused on just earning the trust of his teammates and trying to find a role on this team. And the role on this team is going to be as the engine for this offense. One thing that I was impressed with is he mentioned in the post game after Saturday night's game that the wide receiver coach Adam Mims challenged the wide receiver room at UVA to catch 500 balls a day. Now they have that machine that throws the balls to them, but it's developing that hand strength, the hand-eye coordination, and the muscle memory, so that you're not even really thinking anymore. You're just catching the ball, and you're able to think other things. So 500 balls a day. Think about, I mean, they put gloves on, but you still, I mean, 500 balls a day. It takes time. You're going to get some blood on your hands until your hands toughen up. And he said that, he's proud of the guys. They all stuck to it. And so, I mean, let's see what that does for this team. And I just love the work ethic. Tony Elliott concluding quote, super excited for him. He came in and worked, and he's just a workman. I mean, that's just all you can say about the kid. Final little bit here that we'll talk about, and I do a report card every week. I've been doing this the last at least 3 years, I think. I use as a helpful guide, Pro Football Focus does a great job. It's a subscription website that I mean the folks there break down every play from every angle. Basically the roles that every player on the field, all 22 on each play, should have played, and they have then assign grades for your work in a game, and then as the season goes on. Um, so looking at the UVA team, let's start with the offense. That's where a lot of folks will start their focus. Chandler Morris, 76.0 grade from Pro Football Focus. Now, okay, so we're not grading on the scale of what you remember from school, where what 90 to 100 would be an A. I mean, in my days it was 94 to 100, but we've got great inflation going on. So 90 to 100, and then 80 to 100 would be a B, 70 to 100, or not 80 to 90 would be a B, 70 to 80 would be a C, etc. 76 is a good number. I went out. I would normally give a guy with a 76 borderline A minus B plus. I'm going B plus just because the kid didn't slide on that play and he's hurt. Hopefully he's not hurt for very long, but we'll know that tomorrow in less than 12 hours. So I mean, yeah, but he had a solid night. After those first three drives, he was 1 for 5 on the first three drives. So thus 18 of 22 thereafter. 264 yards, two TDs to 50 yards on the ground, 41 of those coming on scrambles. I noted that earlier. Breaking things down to quadrants, then 4 of 4 for 21 yards at the line of scrimmage. Basically, either screen passes or there was one pop pass. 9 of 12 for 63 yards on passes beyond the line of scrimmage, but less than 10 yards downfield. So that's an average of 7 yards per completion. 4 of 8 for 103 on passes that travel 10 to 19 yards through the air. So that's a good close to 26 per completion. And then 2 of 3 for 77 on passes that travel 20 yards plus through the air. That's 38 and a half per completion. So again, 1 of 5, 13-yard completion. After that, he's 18 of 22 for 251. Good numbers. And Elliott said afterwards, it just took a little bit of time. I mean, one thing we talked about leading into the game was that, I mean, it's not an excuse. It's a reason. Coastal Carolina, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, lots of new talent, like a lot of schools do in this transfer portal era. But especially with the new coordinators, just not no game tape to watch. You had to, watch game tape of the coordinators at the previous stops. They had different athletes there, so there was a feeling out process. Once things got figured out, Virginia moved the ball well consistently. And what Elliott said too was, all right, those first three drives, at least he didn't turn the ball over. I mean, there were a couple passes that were a little questionable, pass attempts, I should say, but I mean, he didn't turn the ball over. That's what you got to do. Now grading the receivers. I mean, God, I've said a lot. Cam Ross reminds me of Link Washington. Jamal Edron will make us forget Malachi Fields. I'm going to insist on that. Charles Harris, burner on the edge. Go to Twitty, a big pass catching tight end. I'm going with an A for Ross, a B plus for Trell Harris. 3 catches on 5 targets, 93 yards, a 73.7 PFF grade. By the way, Ross 86.4 PFF grade. Edrine, 3 catches, 3 targets, 24 yards. He had a TD, so his per catch went down because the TD was a 2-yard touchdown pass. 66.7 PFF grade. I'm giving him a B. That might be harsh, but and then Twitty, 2 catches on 4 targets, 15 yards, a 51.4 PFF grade. I'm going C. I want to see more out of him. The tailbacks. This group disappointed me a bit. I'll be honest. The tailbacks gained 125 rushing yards on 36 attempts, and that's less than 4 per. 4 per's got to be the goal here. Now, part of it is so Jamari Taylor got the best PFF grade, 68.8. I'm going B, by the way, for all 4 of the backs who got carries in this game. 10 carries, 32 yards, 2 TDs. His 2 TDs were 1 and 2 yards. So that's going to throw your averages off. Noah Vaughn, 10 carries, 45 yards, 61.4 PFF grade. Xavier Brown, 8 carries, 28 yards, 61.2 PFF grade. And Harrison Whaley had a touchdown run, a short touchdown run, 7 carries, 18 yards, 60.3. I think they're all within range, but you want to see better. Want to see better. The O-line, I mentioned 15 guys got snaps because of the nature of the blowout win. Great. I mean, in your opener, if you're going to win big, against an overmatched opponent, get guys snaps. So here is what first I'll go through. Let's see, Brady Wilson, the center from UAB. I mean, he came in. This was the pickup of the offseason on the transfer portal for the offensive line. And Monroe Mills, the former Louisville player, the 6'7", 315 left tackle, got hurt in the spring. He was the other big pickup on the offensive line in the spring, but he's out for the season with the ACL injury. Wilson, 56 snaps, zero pass rushes allowed on 30 pass snaps, 77.2 PFF grade. He gets an A, solid A. He started. Now, Jack Whitmer didn't start. He played 40 snaps at right tackle after Wallace Unamba got injured. I believe it was in the first quarter. Unamba had 20 snaps, allowed two pressures on eight pass snaps. Had just a 42.7 PFF grade. Whitmer, who last year was forced into action on the line at right tackle and left tackle in some games. He was a former tight end, converted tight end. Comes in a reserve role, 40 snaps, zero pass rushes, 22 pass snaps, 70.2 grade. I'm giving him an A minus. And I should think about bumping that up because he came in, off the bench, so to speak. Let's see. I'm going Noah Josie with a B plus. The left guard, 49 snaps, zero pass rushes allowed on 26 pass snaps, 66.1 PFF grade. And Drake Metcalf, the right guard, 63 snaps, one pass rush allowed on 32 pass snaps, 60.8 PFF grade. Mikhail Boley, I'm going to give an incomplete. The left tackle, 49 snaps. He allowed zero pass rushes on 26 pass snaps, but a 49.8 PFF grade because his run blocking was downgraded, so to speak, by PFF. Other guys who got snaps in this one, Ben York, others who got snaps that I'm writing about, the key reserves, I guess I'm saying. Ben York, 32 snaps at left tackle. He allowed one pass rush on 13 pass snaps. 65.7 grade. He actually had a pretty good game there. Uh, Kevin Wigington. I remember he was a transfer from Illinois. 24 snaps, zero pass rushes allowed on 11 pass snaps, 79.1 grade. And then Tyshawn Wyatt, the former JMU offensive lineman, played at right tackle for 17 snaps, zero pass rushes on nine pass snaps, 60.4 grade. I'm not giving those reserves or any of the other reserves grades because a lot of their action was against, seconds and thirds and fours on the Coastal Carolina defense. And so I don't know. It doesn't seem right to, you have to grade on a curve, I guess. And I don't want to get into that because it's hard to do. So going to the defense then, I mentioned before John Ruzinski had to start subbing or chose to start subbing liberally, and you do that because you're winning big. Coastal's new air raid offense had just 86 yards of total offense against UVA's ones. And even with the threes and fours getting a lot of time in the third and fourth quarters, they ended up with just 254 and 98 sack adjusted rushing yards, 3.8 yards per play, 1 of 14 on third downs. Defense was great. Solid showing for this group. So grades for the front seven. Um, let's see. I'm giving A's to who did I give A's to? Terrell Jones, the defensive tackle, 20 snaps, two tackles, but a 93.2 PFF grade. Great job eating up blocks in the middle of the line. Big part of why that Coastal team had just the 98 sack adjusted rushing yards. Also, Fisher K-Mac, defensive end, 42 snaps, five tackles. He had two pass pressures, I should say, and then he shared the sack, and he had a 78.6 PFF grade. I'm giving out four B minuses. Landon Danley actually led Virginia with, now I have this wrong. I have in my story two tackles. He actually had seven tackles in the game. One tackle for loss and a 70.8 PFF grade, and on 56 snaps. So an A minus for him. Mitchell Melton, another linebacker, 27 snaps, four tackles, a half tackle for loss, 69.5 PFF grade, gets another A minus. Defensive end, KZ Moore, 43 snaps, three tackles, one pass breakup, one quarterback pressure, and a 66.8 PFF grade. And then Daniel Rickert, defensive end, 25 snaps, one tackle, one pass, one pressure, and a 65.3 PFF grade. Giving out two Bs, middle linebacker James Jackson, 39 snaps, three tackles, and a 65.6 PFF grade. And Maddox Marcellus, 20 snaps, one tackle. He was the other guy who shared the sack with K-Mac. Had one quarterback pressure and a 57.6 PFF grade. So that was pretty solid. I mean, it's a pretty solid effort from the fronts. Secondary, I mean, I talked about the numbers for MJ Morris. Struggled until he went against the threes and fours. Boy, there are a lot of guys who got a lot of snaps in the secondary. This just speaks to the depth there. I'm going to count here: one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine guys who got at least 19 snaps in the defensive secondary here. Uh, I'm giving A's, four A's. Donovan Platt, 79.9 PFF grade. He played 54 snaps. Going with Ethan Mentor. Mentor had the interception, 24 snaps, four tackles. He had a tackle for loss and an interception. So a lot of work, a lot of results for the 24 snaps. 75.8 PFF grade. Um, Christian Charles, 35 snaps, one pass breakup, four tackles, and a 75.0 PFF grade. He gets an A. And then the last A goes to Jordan Robinson, 19 snaps, one tackle, and a 72.0 PFF grade. So one of the two big cornerbacks out there. He's the 6'4" guy. Manuel Carnley is the 6'3" guy, and Carnley gets a B. The B's go to Carnley. He played on 45 snaps. Morris was 1 for 3 throwing at him with a what 63.2 NFL passer rating and a 65.9 PFF grade for Carnley. Also a B to DeMarcus Crosby, who was on the field for 27 snaps. Had three tackles and a 64.1 PFF grade. Corey Costner, cornerback, 20 snaps, three tackles, 62.9 PFF grade. And then Devin Neal, one of the free safeties, 32 snaps, two tackles, and a 60.8 PFF grade. I'm giving a B minus to one guy, cornerback Jason Brevard, 39 snaps, three tackles, and he allowed a couple catches on three pass attempts and had a 55.4 PFF grade. So still a lot of depth back there, man. A lot of depth everywhere, but a lot of depth back there. Final grades go to special teams. Cam Ross returned a touchdown, kickoff return for a touchdown. We had, let's see, there were four punt returns for 31 yards by the punt return unit. Caleb Hardy blocked a punt. Daniel Sparks averaged 48.0 yards per punt and 72.4 yards per kickoff. He had seven touchbacks on eight kickoff attempts. Will Betteridge was well short. I mentioned that earlier on that 51-yard attempt. Will had made a couple of 50-plus yarders in training camp, and so that's why he was sent out there. He can make those kicks. He was just short. And he did make his other two tries from 32 and 41. So Sparks won field position battles. You had great returns. Didn't give up anything in the return game. The unit as a whole gets an A. So that's where I'll leave things with all that. So the focus now turns, now that we've wrapped up week one, focus turns to NC State. I've done no work on NC State. I did watch with one eye most of the way, admittedly. Thursday's opener for NC State, the 24-17 win over East Carolina. State led 17-0 in the second quarter, led 24-7 going into the fourth quarter, and it became a game. Ended up with that 24-17 final score. Now, East Carolina last year, actually, these two teams finished last season in a bowl game with East Carolina winning 26-21. So, it's one game. Who knows where each team is, but we'll start studying them. Got to start studying these guys as the calendar flips from Monday to Tuesday, and the game is Saturday down in Raleigh. The only game of the first five for Virginia that's on the road. So a win this weekend, and things get interesting. For this Virginia team. That's all. I'm talking out loud there because it definitely does make some games that come up after interesting if Virginia can pull the win out here. But we'll break down NC State and worry about the winning part later. So okay, if you have any questions for me, aside from what's going on with Chandler Morris, because I don't know that, and I won't know until tomorrow most likely. But if you have any other questions for me about UVA football, UVA sports in general, feel free to drop me a line at chris@augustafreepress.com.